It was not about passive income. It was not about replacing current employer or firing their current employer. It wasn't about any of that. It was very simple. We are wanting to spend more time with our grandkids. And how many of you feel the same way? What does that WTF moment look like? What does that freedom look like? What kind of value do you place on that? Like, is that a number? Like, in order for you to be able to spend more time doing the things that you want to do, whether it's with family or just purposeful, like, what's that dollar amount? We are just basically talking about velocity banking. The objective today is to kind of spend some time breaking down velocity banking and walking through this example. And for those of you who may be unaware, what is it? Velocity banking is just a strategy. It's a strategy that a lot used to reduce and or eliminate debt. Some use it for specifically debt consolidation. I like to use velocity banking, and I kind of educate around using or leveraging velocity banking to free up cash flow, to free up the cash flow available to you to be able to use and put to work so that your money can go out and make more money for you. Meaning you've got your traditional retirement account that you have with your employer. You've got your investments, maybe your side investments like your mutual funds, stocks and bonds in your brokerage account. You might even have some property, some real estate. But is there another opportunity to take some of that cash flow that you're, I'll say, increasing by following a strategy like this? Is an opportunity to take that cash flow and put it to work elsewhere. And what are those benefits? Obviously, using velocity banking to pay off debt faster. Also, interest savings. You know, when you are chunking away at debt, what ends up happening is you're reducing the amount of interest that you're paying on that debt. And I wouldn't necessarily call this an interest savings, but it's maybe an interest avoidance. And you're using that cash flow to, be able to do other things. And then with that increased cash flow, there's some secondary impact here as well. As you're eliminating debt, what's happening to your credit score? Well, 9 times out of 10, when you're in the throes of it, when you're in the midst of reducing and or eliminating debt, your credit score might be negatively impacted. But as that debt starts to become eliminated, what ends up happening is you are strengthening your credit profile from the bank's perspective. And my favorite is getting multiple uses out of a dollar. Being able to drive your income through some type of debt tool, using that debt tool to pay off debt, and then in addition, using that cash flow to do other things. So it's ultimately getting multiple uses out of the same dollar, which is the objective. And what do you need to be able to do that? What are the vehicles you need to have in place in order to effectively do velocity banking? Well, you got to understand your numbers. And that ultimately means what's coming in and where's that money sitting? What are your expenses? What are your debts? And when I talk about expenses and debts, I'm talking about the minimums. A lot of us pay extra on our credit cards, or we pay extra on our mortgage. But I'm saying, what are those minimums that you're paying on those bills? Because I want to understand what's your cash flow. And based off your cash flow, we will identify what is the best debt tool to be able to address these expenses and these debts so that we can ultimately increase your cash flow. And where this cash flow sits is important. Where this cash flow is sitting today can impact whether or not you can leverage and use it to do other things. If it's just sitting in your checking account, how much value is being is happening for you there? If you're moving that cash flow and it's sitting in your savings account, that interest that you're receiving inside of your savings account, is that good or bad? Is that better or worse than if that cash flow was just simply sitting on a debt tool, keeping that interest on that tool down? And when we talk about velocity banking, again, the thought process is income comes into your normal checking account. And then from your checking account, that income goes and sits on some debt tool. Now, that debt tool can be many different things. But in most cases, the best case, it would be a home equity line of credit. And then you're paying bills from that home equity line of credit. But what ends up happening is that cash flow that's left over is sitting on this debt tool, ultimately keeping the balance low and ultimately allowing you to accrue as little interest as possible. And in today's example, again, it's pretty basic. It was not about passive income. It was not about replacing their current employer or firing their current employer. It wasn't about any of that. It was very simple. It was, hey, we are wanting to spend more time with our grandkids. And how many of you feel the same way? I know it's something that we've been talking about is what does that WTF moment look like? What does that freedom look like? Yes, we control our time, but we are also entrepreneurs. That means that our time is pretty filled with making sure that the people around us are taken care of as well. So what does that look like? And for this couple, the goal, the focus is, what does it look like to be able to spend more time with your grandkids? And to me, I think the tough part for me when I was sitting with this couple is, what kind of value do you place on that? Like, is that a number? Like, in order for you to be able to spend more time doing the things that you want to do, whether it's with family or just purposeful, I want to spend more time working with or for a charity or my church or my sorority or my fraternity, whatever the opportunity might be. What kind of value would you actually put on that? Like, what's that dollar amount? Because when I have my consults, what I'm looking for from you is I'm looking for the math. Hey, this is what I have today, or here's where I am today. Here's where I want to be. So there's a gap. So what are those vehicles we need to put in place to be able to eliminate and or close that gap is the question. And so what value would you put on my job? My objective is just to be able to spend more time with the people that I love, which I thought was pretty powerful.